हमारे यहाँ unions भी बैठे, management भी बैठे, and we had also invited Labour Minister and Labour Commissioner. But as informed to you that unfortunately the Chief Minister has called the Labour Minister and the Labour Commissioner, and that is why they had to leave. We have heard the sides of the union as well as the management. What are the difficulties we perceive and we face when we are advising the companies is also a very treacherous path for us, because amongst the various chambers of lawyers, we pride in claiming that we try to maintain a balance by ensuring that even the human angle is looked into. Some of the interesting provisions of law which we want to point out, the first of which is the demand for non-flexibility in the working hours. In certain sections of the industry, especially in the pharma sector, what we have observed, the unions are demanding that the MR should have fixed time of working. Whereas, Shops and Establishment Act, which has been enacted in 1948, had fixed timings for working. But the pharma industry was the only one which had a flexi timing based on the doctor's availability. So, the trend nowadays, what we have understood in the market is that companies as well as government agencies are talking of flexi timings with a base fixed timing. So, this is one of the areas which could be a practical solution for the people rather than sticking to the norms and the law. Pranshvik.
But the second aspect, what we see is that today when we are speaking of compensation packages, world is speaking of CTC, cost to the company. Because after all, when we are fixing the compensation and when the charter of demands are taking place, management always speaks of CTC, what is ultimate cost to the company, so that I can decide my course of action, what will be the cost of my product, whether I am competitive in the market or not. Everything will be decided based on CTC. This is a thought of management. To a great extent, union also gets convinced, yes, CTC is to be talked, what are the factors included, what are not to be included, how it is to be worked out. At the same time, government agency look at it totally with weird angle differently. They want to stick to the provisions of Minimum Wages Act, that is of 1947 or prior to that, which speaks of basic special allowance, that's all. Basic, once in or 4 or 5 years, it is revised. Special allowance, after every 6 months it is revised. The inspector comes with notification. Basic is written 2,000, special allowance is written 1,500 and other things. Your wages 15,000, 10,000, okay, but your basic is 1,000 rupees, which is less than what is notified. So your special allowance is less than what is notified, so I am prosecuting you. Whereas court says if you are paying more than the basic and minimum notified by management, notified by the government, and your total salary paid to the worker is more than minimum wages, then what bifurcation is doing, that is your prerogative. But unfortunately, inspectors do not want to listen for their own conveniences. Unfortunately, today neither the minister is present nor the Commissionerate of Labour, they are present. This is the concern we wanted to voice before them. Somewhere that change is required. When we are speaking change in laws, make in India, then such changes are required, which creates an environment which is friendly. When union and workers are ready, why government is not ready to listen to those things? Same thing happens with electronically maintenance of record. Now, as Rahulji has said, he is representing the IT sector which are speaking of paperless office. At the same time, government says you maintain your record with pen and pencil physically. You show us the register, we don't want to see the computer, whatever you are maintaining on soft copies. Dr. Saab, same thing happens in many companies. the management has introduced reporting of MRs, daily reports, electronically by providing them laptops or those data cards and etc. But mindset, no adoption, we don't want to adopt. Why? For some inherent conveniences. No, these are the things which requires to be addressed, look into as a union also, and certainly at the time of question answer, FMRI, a leftist union which is representing largest complement of MRs, and you are representing that party, I would like to have some insight from you when we come to a question answer session. Take it.
Now, one of the most interesting legislations we have is the Industrial Disputes Act. One of my recommendation to the Labour Commissioner was, why don't you term it as Industrial Resolution Act? Why is it a dispute act? When both the parties are ready to sit together, you are ready to sit, then it should be a resolution. Now, the adversity is the best we can see as a lawyer and as a client. Under MRTU and PULP Act, which applies to Maharashtra only since 1975, if I want to give a lockout notice or if the workman has to give strike notice, it is a 14 days notice. Parallelly is the Industrial Disputes Act, applicable all over India, which Maharashtra Act does not apply. There is no notice period. I feel like I go on strike from just now. I feel like I go on lockout from just now. My submission to the government was, including to Mr. Tomarji, Narendra Tomar, when the new government came in, he was the Labour Minister, we had met him up, we have given to him a presentation, that these are anomalies of law which, if removed, will reduce the disputes amongst the people. Majority of disputes can be resolved only by removal of anomalies of law. Clarify what the law is, whatever the disputes are will be lessened. So our suggestion was, even under ID Act, you must have a provision of 15 days notice, because it brings the parties under pressure together to resolve the issue, rather than a one-day notice and strike or a lockout and then there's a fight. The second is that about the 100 and 300. Dr. Saab has given some facts and figures that permission to close factories, more than 100, should not be changed to 300. Dumal Saab also has said, Madik Saab ne bhi kaha, Shashikant Shinde Saab ne bhi kaha. But I pose a question to myself whenever I get this issue. How many owners want to close down a factory for the sake of a union or for any other reason? Unless they are actually compelled to close. Closure is the ultimate outcome of frustration for any industrialist. This is my feeling and this is our experience. Secondly, and most important, we have faced these practical issues, is that under the Industrial Disputes Act, which governs all disputes, if there is a company having no union, 80%, 90% people accept the settlement, sign it. 5%, 10% go to the court, there is an agitation, they are the leaders, and they ensure the settlement doesn't happen. No law protects the management. What my contention is, it is not the question of management or union or workers. It is the industry at large which suffers for a handful of people. My contention is on that point, that there should be some clarity in the laws so as to give guidelines to everybody concerned, whether it is workmen, whether it is union or whether it is management, that aisa karenge to you are right and aisa karenge you are 100% wrong. Next point.
The next legislation comes is Industrial Employment Standing Orders, which governs the service conditions of the workers. Now, when we look at that act provides for that act provides every state to make rules for its implementation. Now, if we see as regards Maharashtra is concerned, by virtue of an amendment, in Shops and Establishment Act, the standing orders is made applicable to 50 or more. That standing order speaks of discipline, what are the service conditions, age of retirement. Then payment of suspension allowance, subsistence allowance. Whereas, if I am employing less than 50, where do I stand? Unfortunately, there is no answer. Then what I have to do? I have to have my own service conditions. Now, when I am employing less than 50, necessarily I am a small-time employer. I am concerned with my business and my earnings and my sustenance. I don't have that total infrastructure who can guide me or who can maintain all those things.